My child, you have felt watched lately. Not the frightening kind of watched, not paranoia, nothing you could point to and prove to anyone, just a subtle sense that has followed you from room to room. A quiet weight of attention resting on the back of your neck when you turned and no one was there. You have caught yourself living a little more carefully than usual, standing a little straighter, moving through your ordinary days as if someone important were quietly in the room with you. And you told yourself it was only your imagination, only stress, only the tiredness talking. It was not your imagination, my beloved. You have been under observation, but not by the one you think, and not for the reason you fear. And before I tell you a single detail of what I watched unfold over these last weeks, I need you to hear the thing that matters most, which is that this message was not meant to reach you easily. Something worked to keep it sliding past your eyes the way 1,000 ordinary things have slid past you this week without ever touching the place inside you that has quietly known something was different. But you stopped, you stayed, and that one small act of stillness, in a life that has trained you to keep scrolling past everything, is already being written down in heaven as the moment you turned and looked directly at what you were never supposed to see. And if something in your chest went still the moment I said you have been watched, my child, if a quiet tightening or a slow loosening moved through you before your mind had language for it, I do not want you to explain it away. That stillness is not nothing, my beloved. That is the part of you that has known for weeks that your life was carrying more attention than your ordinary days could account for, finally being given permission to breathe, now that it has heard the truth named out loud. Most of the people scrolling tonight will never reach these words you did. That was not the algorithm, and it was not an accident, my beloved. That was arranged before you ever pressed play. So if you felt that recognition arrive before your mind could catch up to it, do something with it instead of letting it pass. Type "I felt seen" in the comments. Not as a comment, my child, but as the first honest thing your spirit has said out loud in a long while, because when you name the recognition, the part of you that already knew finally hears itself speak, and heaven marks that you were awake enough to answer when I called. So let me tell you what I watched, my child, because you need to know what your ordinary faithfulness has actually been doing in the world while you assumed no one was paying attention. 3 weeks ago, someone from your past made a decision. Someone you used to know, someone who once stood close to your life and then left it, or was pushed out of it by the changes in you, made a choice in the quiet of their own discontent. They hired a private investigator to watch you, not to protect you, my beloved, to study you. Full surveillance. Track your movements, document your days, photograph your routines, build a complete profile of who you have become so that they could finally understand what happened to the person they used to know. They expected to find evidence. They wanted something that would justify to their own conscience the way things ended between you. Some proof that you had fallen apart without them, or hardened into someone bitter, or shrunk into a small and diminished version of yourself. They wanted a report that would let them sleep at night. What they got instead left them confused and convicted and quietly terrified. Let me tell you how it happened. Understand who this person was, my beloved, because it will help you feel the weight of what I am telling you. This was not a stranger. This was someone who once had a place in your story, someone who watched you struggle in a season when you had far less than you have now, and who quietly assumed you would never rise past the version of you they had grown comfortable with. When word reached them, from a distance, that your life had changed, that you carried yourself differently now, that there was a peace on you that had not been there before, it did not make them glad, my child. It unsettled them, because the person you have become is a mirror they never asked for, and every rumor of your rising forced them to look at their own standing still. So they did not call you my beloved. They did not ask you. They paid a stranger to explain how you had done it, because they could not bear to hear the answer from your own mouth. That is how much your becoming had shaken them, beloved. You knew, my child. Not consciously, not in words, not in any way you could have explained to another living soul, but your spirit knew. That is what the weight on the back of your neck was. That is why you found yourself living more intentionally these last weeks. Why the ordinary began to feel strangely significant. Why some deep part of you kept whispering that your life was not entirely your own anymore, that your small and unremarkable days were being recorded for a purpose larger than you could see. You thought you were imagining the significance. My beloved, you were not. Your ordinary was being watched, and your spirit, which is always more awake than your mind, adjusted the way you moved through the world, because it knew what your mind had not yet been told. Before you go any further, stay close to me. If my voice is reaching you right now, follow this channel and turn on the reminder so that when I speak again, you will not miss the moment. You have waited too long to walk away right when I am beginning to answer. Now let me show you the man who was sent, my beloved, because you need to understand what kind of eyes were turned toward your life. He was a professional, a man with 15 years behind him in this work. He had photographed cheating spouses and tracked people through bitter custody disputes, and done the routine, joyless labor of confirming what suspicious people already believed about one another. He had seen everything, or he thought he had. He gave himself 14 days to complete the assignment and deliver the profile. He was finished in 6. Not because he had gathered enough, my child, because he could not handle what he was seeing. A man who had spent 15 years watching people at their absolute worst was undone in less than a week by watching one person live an ordinary life. And the ordinary life that broke him, my beloved, the ordinary life that 15 hardened years had not prepared him for, was yours. He was a careful man, my child, and a thorough one. He did not rush. He built his cases the way a patient hunter builds a blind, slowly, quietly, giving nothing away. He had a method that had never once failed him, and he trusted it completely, the way a man trusts a tool he has used 10,000 times. And that is what makes those 6 days so remarkable, my beloved. It was not that his method broke down. It was that his method worked perfectly, and it kept returning results he had no category for. Every technique he knew delivered exactly what it was designed to deliver, and every single time the thing it delivered pointed to something no surveillance manual had ever prepared him to face. He was not undone because his tools failed him. Beloved, he was undone because his tools worked and kept handing him the fingerprints of heaven. Your spirit knew all of this before I ever told you, my child. You felt the weight, and the weight was real. So bear witness to that knowing. Type "my spirit already knew" in the comments. Say it not as a guess, but as a testimony. My beloved, because the part of you that sensed the attention these last weeks was not being paranoid and was not losing its grip. It was being faithful. It was staying awake. And when you testify to what your spirit knew before your mind could confirm it, heaven records that you were listening even in the dark, even when no one had told you there was anything to hear. Let me take you to what he saw on the first day, my beloved. He followed you to a bookstore. Nothing unusual, nothing dramatic, only you moving quietly through the aisles the way you do, and then standing at the checkout counter with a book in your hands. He raised his camera to photograph you, the way he had photographed 1,000 people before you, and he pressed the shutter, and then he forgot how to breathe. Because there, in the small bright screen of his camera, standing directly beside you with one hand resting gently on your shoulder, was a woman he had not seen with his own eyes. An older woman, my child, with a wrap around her head and a kind and knowing face. And she was not looking at you. She was looking straight into the camera, and she was smiling. He pulled his eye away from the screen and looked at the checkout counter with his own 2 eyes, and there was no one there, only you. He looked back down at the screen, and she was still there, one hand on your shoulder, still smiling into the lens. He deleted the photograph, his hands no longer steady, and he lifted the camera and took 3 more. She was in every single one. The same position, the same hand on your shoulder, the same smile aimed directly at him, as though she wanted to be seen. Let me tell you who that was, my beloved, because you deserve to know. That was your grandmother. She has been walking with you since the day she left this world, praying over you in a place where prayer is never interrupted and never grows tired. And she made herself visible in that camera lens for one reason, my child, so that the man sent to prove you were alone would know beyond any possibility of argument that you have never once been alone. You are not walking through this life unaccompanied, my beloved. You never were. Psalm 139:1-3 has been true over you every single day, whether you felt it or not. It says, O Lord, Thou hast searched me and known me. Thou knowest my downsitting and mine uprising. Thou understandest my thought afar off. Thou compassest my path and my lying down, and art acquainted with all my ways. You have been fully searched and fully known, my child, by me, and you have been surrounded the entire way by the ones I set to walk beside you. He came to document your isolation, and on the very first day, before he had gathered a single useful thing, I showed him your company. I want you to sit inside that truth for a moment, my beloved, because you have spent long seasons feeling alone. There were nights you were certain no one saw what you were carrying, days you did the right thing with no witness and no reward, whole years when it seemed the faithful path was also the loneliest one. Hear me now, you were never alone on a single one of those days, my child. The grandmother who appeared in that lens is only the part I allowed a stranger's camera to capture. There has been a whole company walking with you that no lens could ever hold. A great cloud of the faithful who went before you, praying you through rooms you thought you entered by yourself. The loneliness you felt was real as a feeling, beloved, but it was never true as a fact. You were surrounded the entire time, my child, and now even a hired stranger holds the photographs that prove it. If this message is stirring something in your heart, you can sow a seed of faith today, as an act of trust in this season, where God has been watching over you in secret, and your encounter is drawing near. It is not about the amount. It is about the declaration that you believe God is already moving on your behalf. You can sow your seed through the link in the description below. Let it be your way of saying, I trust the timing, and I am ready to receive what has been prepared for me. And here is something I want you to receive before I show you the second day. My beloved, your ordinary matters. The small and unphotographed moments of your life, the ones no one applauds, the ones you assume vanish the instant they happen, are not vanishing at all. They are being seen, and they are being kept. Matthew 6:4 says that thy Father which seeth in secret himself shall reward thee openly. I see in secret, my child. I have been watching the parts of your life that no human eye ever validated, the quiet obedience no one thanked you for, the faithfulness that had no audience, and none of it has been wasted. So receive that truth with your own hand. Type my ordinary matters in the comments, not as a wish, my beloved, but as a settled fact. Because when you name the worth of your hidden faithfulness, you are agreeing with the God who has been recording every unseen moment of it. On the second day, my beloved, he tried a different method. He brought a long-range microphone, the kind that can lift a conversation off the air from across a crowded room, and he aimed it at you while you sat alone in a coffee shop. You were not speaking to anyone, my child. Your lips were not moving. You were simply sitting there, quiet, present, at peace with the morning, and yet through his headphones he heard your voice. Clear, steady, unbroken. He heard you speaking in a language he did not recognize, fluid and rhythmic and constant, flowing like water that had been flowing for a very long time. He checked his equipment, certain it had malfunctioned. It had not. He recorded several minutes of it, and later he ran the recording through language identification software, the kind that can name almost any tongue spoken anywhere on the earth. It returned no match, so he carried it to a colleague of his, an audio specialist, a man who had spent his entire career analyzing sound. And after listening for a long, uneasy moment, the colleague took the headphones off slowly and said, "This is not a language. This is frequency, and it is coming from the subject. Be careful." Let me tell you what he heard, my child. That was your spirit praying. There is a place inside you that prays even when your mouth is silent, that intercedes in words your mind was never given. That speaks to me on a frequency your conscious thoughts have never been able to reach. Your grandmother knew that language. Heaven knows that language fluently, my beloved, and it carries a power that unsettles the very things that move against you in the dark, which is precisely why a man sitting in a quiet office analyzing sound felt the sudden need to say, "Be careful." He did not understand what he had captured, my child, but something in him understood enough to be afraid of it. You have been praying in a way you did not even know you were praying, and it has been disrupting things you will not fully see until you stand on the other side of this life and look back. And I want you to understand something about that frequency, my child, because it will change the way you see your own quiet hours. The prayers you pray when your mouth cannot find the words are not the weaker ones. They are the stronger ones, my beloved. They come from a place too deep for language, and they travel straight past every defense the darkness tries to raise. That is why the enemy has worked so hard to convince you that your prayer life is inadequate, that you do not pray enough, that you do not pray well, that your quiet groanings do not really count for anything. It was never true, beloved. Every time you have sat in silence and simply turned your heart toward me, a frequency went out that shook things you will never see on this side of eternity. The stranger with the microphone caught only a few minutes of it. My child, heaven has been receiving it your entire life. My child, do not walk this road alone. Follow this channel and join the ones who have kept their hearts open to me. Every time you return here, you are saying yes to me again, and I honor every heart that stays. On the third day, my beloved, he watched you do your laundry, and what he witnessed there cracked something open in him that he could not close again. You were sitting in an ordinary laundromat on an ordinary Wednesday, and over the course of a few hours, 7 different people approached you, not together, one at a time, each of them unplanned, each of them drawn toward you as if they had been quietly sent. First, a lost teenager who did not seem to know why he had walked over to where you were, and who left a while later standing somehow taller than when he arrived. Then a young mother whose baby had been screaming without pause, and the child went quiet as she drew near the place where you sat, and she looked at you as though she had walked into something she could not name. Then an elderly man who ended up talking with you for 15 minutes about nothing and everything, and who walked away with his eyes wet. Then a woman across the room who was sliding into a panic attack, whom you noticed before anyone else in that room had, and who left calm 7 people, my child. And the investigator noticed a detail that disturbed him more than all the rest. Each one of them paused a few feet before they reached you, as if they themselves did not fully understand why they were walking in your direction. And each one of them, after they left you, stopped somewhere nearby and stood perfectly still for a moment, with a hand pressed against their own chest. 7 encounters, 7 people changed, on a random Wednesday in a laundromat, while a stranger with a camera watched and could not explain a single second of it. That was not coincidence, my beloved, and it was not simply your charm. That was my spirit directing hurting people to the exact place where the thing you carry could reach them. You carry a presence, my child, a peace, a hope that lives in you so naturally that you have long since stopped noticing it is there. And I keep guiding wounded and searching people directly into its path. You have been doing this your entire life without ever recognizing it as ministry. You thought you were only being kind. You were being used in the most beautiful meaning of that word, as a place where heaven quietly touches the ground. 7 people walked out of that laundromat different because you happened to be inside it. And you went home that night believing you had done nothing at all. That is the mystery of what you carry, my child. You give the most in the very moments you are least aware you are giving anything. The people I send to you do not need you to perform. They need you to be present. And presence is the one thing that cannot be faked and cannot be forced, because it flows only from what is actually inside you. 7 strangers felt it in a single afternoon, my beloved, because it is always in you, on the good days and the hard days, in the laundromat and the waiting room and the checkout line. You are a carrier, beloved, and a carrier does not have to try. A carrier only has to show up. So claim what you carry, my beloved. Type, I carry his peace in the comments. Say it as an owner and not a beggar. Because when you name the thing that lives in you, you stop apologizing for the very presence I placed there to heal the people I keep sending across your path. On the 4th day, my child, something happened that the investigator had not counted on. He broke his own protocol. He got closer than his rules allowed, and he asked you a simple question about the book you were carrying. It was meant to be nothing. 30 seconds of contact to gather one more detail. But in that brief exchange, standing near you, hearing your voice answer him directly, he felt something he had not felt in 20 years, not since his own grandmother died. A warmth that spread slowly through his whole body. A peace that made no sense in the situation he was in, and beneath both of those, the strangest sensation of all, the feeling of being truly seen. Not the version of himself he performed for the world, not the hardened professional, but the real man buried underneath all of it, the one no one had looked at in years, and it terrified him, my beloved. Because a man cannot keep hunting something that makes him feel found. And if your heart feels full right now, think of someone else who needs to hear these words. You can sow a seed in their name through the link in the description below as a prayer that this same peace finds them. When you give in faith for another, you plant something that God multiplies back into your own life. On the 5th day, my beloved, he followed you to a park, and there he witnessed the thing that finally undid him completely. You went for a walk, and as you walked, you prayed out loud. You did not know a single soul could hear you, and what he heard was not what he expected. You named people, specific people, the ones who had hurt you, betrayed you, walked out on you, left wounds you carried in silence for years. You named them one by one, and then, my child, you blessed them by name. You released each of them from what they owed you. You asked good things over the very people who had cost you the most, and you meant every word of it alone on a path, believing no one was listening. He recorded it, my beloved, and this time not for the client. He recorded it for himself, because he told himself he needed proof that a human being could actually live this way. Matthew 5:44 had come to life in front of his hidden camera. It says, "But I say unto you, love your enemies, bless them that curse you, do good to them that hate you, and pray for them which despitefully use you and persecute you." And in the middle of hearing you do exactly that, the truth landed on him like a stone. He realized that he was one of those people. He was violating your peace for money, and it struck him that you were very likely praying for people like him too, in that very moment, without knowing his name. So confess what you have already been doing in the quiet, my child. The thing that costs the most and that heaven honors above almost everything else. Type "I bless my enemies" in the comments. Say it not because it is easy, but because you have already lived it, alone when no one was watching to applaud you for it. Because when you bless the ones who wounded you, my beloved, you take the last weapon out of their hands and you hand your whole case to me, and heaven records the rare soul who could have cursed and chose instead to release. On the 6th day, my beloved, it ended. You were in a grocery store moving through the aisles the way anyone does, and then you stopped. You set your basket down on the floor and you turned and looked directly at the position where his camera was hidden, a position no ordinary person could have known to find. And you smiled, a genuine, warm, unhurried, peaceful smile, aimed straight at a man you were never supposed to be able to see. Then you took out your phone and you typed something into it, calm and unbothered. 30 seconds later, his own phone buzzed in his pocket. A text from an unknown number. It read, "I forgive you, whatever you are doing, whoever sent you, I forgive you. You do not have to keep carrying what you are carrying. There is a better way, and when you are ready, he is waiting." He looked up from the screen to find you, and you were gone. 45 seconds, my child. From the 2nd floor of that store to nowhere in the building, a thing that should not have been physically possible, he searched. You were simply not there. He quit that same day. He deleted every file he had gathered, every photograph, every recording. He went home. He got down on his knees on his own floor for the first time since he was 8 years old, and he prayed. And what he prayed was this: "I do not know who that person is, but whatever they have, I need it. Show me, change me, use me." Sit with what you just heard, my beloved. A man who was sent to end you ended up on his knees begging to become like you. That is not a small thing, my child. 15 years of watching people betray one another had convinced him that everyone underneath was the same, that goodness was a performance, and every soul was hiding something. And then he watched you for 6 days when you did not know he was there, when there was no reason on earth to perform for anyone, and he could not find the seam. There was no hidden version of you, beloved. The peace was real. The prayers were real. The forgiveness was real, sent to the very man who was violating your life. And that broke every cynical thing he believed about human beings, my child, because he had finally met one whose private self and public self were the same self. You did not merely survive his surveillance, my beloved. You led him to me through it without ever once knowing his name. Now understand what actually happened here, my beloved, because it is the whole meaning of everything I have shown you. He was sent to gather evidence against you. He was hired to build a case, to document your undoing, to prove that the person they remembered had come to nothing. Instead, my child, he gathered evidence of me. He collected 6 days of documented proof of what a kingdom life looks like when it is lived in ordinary places by an ordinary person who does not know they are being watched. He came to record your ruin, and he left holding recorded evidence of my spirit operating through you in a bookstore, a coffee shop, a laundromat, a park, and a grocery store. Heaven did not merely see your faithfulness, my beloved. Heaven let it be recorded, in a camera and a microphone and a stranger's breaking heart, so that it could never again be argued away. Your grandmother in the photograph, your prayers on the frequency, the 7 who were healed by your presence, the blessing you spoke over your enemies, the forgiveness you sent to the very man hunting you, all of it documented. And Matthew 6:4 stands over the entire record, because your Father who has been seeing in secret has now begun to reward you openly, in the wreckage of a man who came to condemn you and left convicted by you. And this is the part I most want you to carry. My beloved, heaven did not simply watch your faithfulness go by and let it fade. Heaven recorded it, the same way that camera recorded your grandmother and that microphone recorded your prayers. Every morning you chose to rise when staying down would have been easier is in the record. Every time you forgave someone who never once apologized is in the record. Every unseen act of quiet obedience, every prayer whispered when you had no strength left, every moment you kept your softness, when the world handed you every reason to go cold, all of it is in the record, my child. And the record does not lie, and the record does not expire. A hired stranger was permitted to capture 6 ordinary days of it on his devices for one reason, so that you would finally believe what I have been telling you all along. Your life is documented evidence, beloved, and the verdict written across every page of it is not guilty. The verdict is beloved. Now I must speak to you with a different weight, my child, because there is an accounting that has to be named, and it cannot be named in the same tender voice I have used until now. So hear me in my authority. There is one who hired that man, one who sat at a distance and paid to have your life pulled apart and handed to them in a folder. And right now, they are waiting for a report that is never going to come. They have called that investigator 17 times, and he does not answer, because he cannot explain to them what he found without confessing what it did to him. And in that silence, something is growing in the one who hired him. Not the evidence they wanted, conviction. The kind that does not need a report to do its work. Because the investigator did send them one last thing before he walked away. One sentence. It read, "You sent me to find out what happened to the person you used to know. I found out they became who they were always meant to be. And you were not invited to that version, not because they excluded you, but because you excluded yourself. They did not lose you to another person, and they did not lose you to circumstance or bad luck. They lost you to transformation. And transformation does not send out invitations. Hear the verdict of heaven over this, spoken plainly and without heat, because it does not need heat to be true. Isaiah 54:17 says, "No weapon that is formed against thee shall prosper, and every tongue that shall rise against thee in judgment thou shalt condemn. This is the heritage of the servants of the Lord, and their righteousness is of me." The weapon was formed. Surveillance is a weapon, and it was aimed directly at you. But look at what it prospered into. It did not prosper into your exposure. It prospered into their conviction. The very instrument they built to catch you became the instrument that caught them, and it is doing its work in the silence right now. And Luke 12:2-3 completes it. Because concealment always ends, it says, "For there is nothing covered that shall not be revealed, neither hid that shall not be known. Therefore whatsoever ye have spoken in darkness shall be heard in the light, and that which ye have spoken in the ear in closets shall be proclaimed upon the housetops." What they arranged in the dark did not stay in the dark. It came into the light and turned on them, and Genesis 50:20 seals it, because this was always the pattern. It says, "But as for you, ye thought evil against me, but God meant it unto good, to bring to pass, as it is this day, to save much people alive." They meant the surveillance for evil. I meant the very same surveillance for good. The evidence they paid for became the evidence of my glory, and a hardened man is on his knees because of it. You do not lift a hand in this. That was never your assignment. Your assignment was only to keep living faithfully. Mine was to let their weapon complete their own undoing. You have stayed this far because your spirit recognizes the truth. If you want to agree with what God is doing in your life, you can sow a seed of faith as a sign of that agreement. This is not a payment. It is a declaration. The link is in the description below. And every seed sown in faith is a heart saying yes to the blessing already in motion. And here is what all of this has been proving about you, my beloved. So let me hand it back to you now. You did not perform any of it. You were not trying to be watched. You simply lived, and the living was enough, because you have quietly become who you were always meant to be. The person from your past went looking for who you used to be and could not find them anywhere, because that person is gone and someone truer stands in their place. So own it, my child. Type "I became who I am" in the comments. Not who they remember, not who you were before the seasons that shaped you. Who you actually are now, refined and deepened and unmistakable. Because when you name the person you have become, my beloved, you stop grieving the version of you that other people preferred, and you take full possession of the one heaven has been building this entire time. Now hear me about what is coming, my child, because this is where the title of this word finds you. The one who hired the investigator is about to reach out to you directly, not through anyone else themselves. And it will not be casual. It will be vulnerable and raw and unguarded in a way you never saw from them before. And when it comes, I want you prepared, because every emotion you thought you had fully released is going to come flooding back the moment you hear from them. Do not let that frighten you, my beloved. Healing was never the disappearance of feeling. Healing means you can feel all of it and no longer be controlled by any of it. So when the flood comes, do not mistake it for proof that you never healed. It is proof that you are human, and that what happened mattered, and that you are strong enough now to feel it without drowning in it. You will have a decision to make, and you will make it from your discernment. My child, not from their words. What you have heard today is only the beginning. There is more I want to show you in the days ahead. Follow this channel so you can walk the rest of this journey with me, because I am not finished speaking over your life. So let me teach you how to stand in that encounter when it arrives, my beloved, because I do not want you walking into it unarmed. Do not defend your growth. You owe no one a justification for who you have become, and the moment you start explaining yourself, you hand back the ground you fought so hard to gain. Do not attack them, my child. Their inability to grow alongside you makes them human, not evil. And you do not need to make a villain out of someone who is simply left behind by your becoming. Watch their actions across the coming season, not their words, because words are easy and change is hard. And if what they bring you is real, it will still be real months from now, tested and proven. Protect your peace, my beloved. You bled for that peace. You did not survive everything you survived only to hand it back for a feeling of nostalgia. And hear this last thing plainly. You are not responsible for returning to who you used to be so that someone else can feel comfortable around you again. That is not love. That is a cage with softer bars. And know this as you weigh it all, my child. You are allowed to be glad they reached out and still choose carefully what happens next. You are allowed to feel genuine compassion for them and still not hand them a key to the rooms in you that took years to rebuild. Mercy does not mean unlocked doors, my beloved. You can forgive completely, the way you already did on that path, and still let someone earn their way back slowly. In the daylight, over time, by their fruit, and not by their apology. Do not confuse the peace of forgiveness with an obligation to restore full access. I forgave you completely, my child, and I still let you grow at the pace of trust. And you are permitted to offer others the very same thing, grace that is total and access that is earned, beloved. And I must warn you tenderly, my child, because I love you enough to prepare you. In the days after this word, the enemy will try to convince you that the healing was never real. When those old emotions rise at the sound of their voice, a whisper will come and tell you that all your growth was pretense, that you are right back where you started, that nothing ever changed. Do not believe it, my beloved. Feeling something is not the same as being controlled by it. The rising of an old emotion is not the return of an old bondage. It is simply the proof that you are alive, and that this cost you something. Let the feeling come, and let it pass through you, and remain standing exactly where you are. The doubt is not a sign that this was wrong. It is a sign that something is trying very hard to steal what you have already won. Now let me give you a few keys to carry through everything ahead, my child. Live like your ordinary is someone's evidence, because it is. You never know which unremarkable Wednesday is the one heaven records, and a stranger cannot recover from. Let your private worship be stronger than your public presentation, because the man on the microphone heard the frequency you make when you think no one is listening. And that is the truest thing about you. And bless the ones who set themselves against you by name, the way you did on that path, because when you bless your enemies, the darkness has no protocol for it. It knows how to answer hatred. It has no answer at all for a soul that returns blessing for harm. So receive the whole weight of this now. My beloved, type heaven is watching me in the comments. And if a warmth is gathering in your chest as you read that, or a stillness is settling over you that you did not decide to feel, do not talk yourself out of it. That is your spirit recognizing what your mind is still catching up to. When you type those words, you are agreeing that the eyes on your life were never your enemy's eyes. They were mine, because you did not skip this message, my child, because you stayed through the whole account when it would have been easier to close it and keep scrolling. Something is being released into this moment that was held back for the ones who remained. The people who left when it began will not receive what is being given now, not as a punishment, but because it required this. It required you to stay and to hear all of it, and to let it reach the place it was sent to reach. And you did. So what was held in reserve for the faithful is being opened specifically for you, because you were here when it counted, and I want to answer the quiet fear you have carried, my beloved, the one underneath all the rest. You have wondered whether you missed your moment, whether you took too long to heal, whether the waiting cost you the thing that was meant for you, whether you are somehow behind. Hear me, your delay was divine. I do not operate on your timeline, my child. I operate on my purpose, and your purpose does not expire because you took the time to heal correctly instead of quickly. Jeremiah 29:11 has been true over you the entire time. It says, "For I know the thoughts that I think toward you, saith the Lord, thoughts of peace and not of evil, to give you an expected end." You are not late. You are not behind. You are exactly on my schedule. And the encounter approaching you is not arriving early or arriving late. It is arriving on time, so let the fear of being behind fall away from you entirely, my beloved. The ones who rush their healing are carrying it still, unfinished, and it leaks into every new thing they touch. You did the harder and slower work, my child. You let yourself be fully mended instead of quickly patched, and now you get to walk into what is next as someone whole, not someone still bleeding beneath a bandage that never held. That was not lost time, beloved. That was the very season in which you quietly became the person this next chapter requires. Nothing was wasted. The waiting was the workshop, my child, and you did not come out of it empty. You came out of it built. So claim what is coming toward you, my beloved. Type "my encounter is coming" in the comments. Say it as someone who already knows it is on the way, because heaven has already set it in motion, and nothing can turn it back now. And here is the last thing I want you to carry out of this, my daughter, and every son standing in this same place tonight. Live like you are being watched, because you are. Not by enemies trying to catch you in something, not by anyone waiting for you to fall. You are being watched by heaven, documenting your faithfulness in places no human being will ever applaud. You are being watched by a Father who is proud, deeply and openly proud, of how far you have come and how much you carried to get here. The surveillance you feared was never the real story, my child. The real story is that you have never once been unseen, and everything you did in the dark has been recorded in the light, and the reward that was building in secret is beginning to arrive out in the open. So come close now, my beloved, and let me bless you before you go. I speak peace over the encounter that is coming, that you would meet it standing and not shaken. I speak discernment over your heart, my child, that you would read fruit and not flattery, actions and not words. I speak protection over the peace you fought so hard to build, that no voice from your past could ever talk you back out of it. I speak completion over your healing, my beloved, that what I began in you would not be undone by a single hard conversation. And I speak this over you plainly, beloved. You were seen the entire time. You were never once alone. And the reward for a faithfulness that no one clapped for is arriving now, out in the open, where everyone will finally see what heaven quietly recorded in the dark. As we come to the end, hold in your heart the one thing you are believing for right now. If you feel led, you can sow a final seed of faith for that very thing through the link in the description below. Do it not out of pressure, but out of trust, knowing that God honors every faithful heart. And whether you sow or simply stay, may peace cover you. May every door meant for you open, and may you walk fully into the miracle that has already begun. Amen.